Whoops. Forgot to set something up. Hopefully this works. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Welcome to the live. We are alive. Okay? Got like devil horns or something. We're alive. We're alive and we're breathing. Okay? And we are also live at the same time. So, got this little bad boy. So, less issues with sound now. I'm not on my laptop, so I'm not using OBS. Directly from the phone, which is cool. And got this little bad boy, relatively inexpensive. Wouldn't need this if it wasn't so damn loud. And if I didn't have to do this stuff in public or the balcony. But where there is a will, Chris gets slapped. So, 3-second economy. That's what we're talking about. Okay? A little bit of a late live again today. Well, yesterday wasn't late, but a little bit of a late live today. I went through writing some scripts yesterday, and I didn't post them. I didn't post them because as I had finished, I recorded it, and as I'd finished editing it, rewatched it, and realized I recorded 5 videos, by the way. I recorded 5, and all of them were kind of everywhere. They were just kind of all over the place. And that made me think. And I was not happy with them. And this is a turning point, right? See, before, it was okay to do that because I was still trying to figure out what the hell to do, right? And I don't see it as a negative. I don't see it as a negative that what I made was completely useless, right? For the position I'm in now. What I made was completely useless, but it illuminated something to me. I am now in a more advanced position than I was before. You know, we're not at 0 anymore. We're at 1. It's day 33 every day. And also, I'm realizing that these off-timed lives, right? They got to stop. We've got to have a scheduled live now, right? We're going live every day, right? We've managed to come live every day, but now it's getting to the point where, I'll put it off because I've got things to do. But I have to plan my day around this because this is important. I got to go live every day for 100 days. So I can't just be going live willy-nilly. But this is good. We're a month and 3 days, a month and 2 days, depends how you want to count it. We're a month in, just over. And we're realizing that it is now time to advance, right? Cannot just be making willy-nilly content, right? We're content creators. We're making content. And as a, what do you call it? As a result of that, as a consequence of that, once you get to a point, once you're past one, when you have formulated your ideas and you've recognized your strengths, you realize that what you were doing before is just not going to cut it, right? We managed to get what, 3 something thousand views? It's not enough. It was good for the time because we were just beginning, right? It's good for someone who's got um, what, I've got 70 subscribers now. It's good for someone who has 70 subscribers to get a video, a short, that has 1,000 views, a live stream that has close to 1,000 views, you know. But there's no consistency, and still, it's quite low, right? So, at a turning point is a good thing. A turning point is a good thing, and it's a mental turning note, right? It's like the stuff I'm doing works for what I've made it up to right now. But to progress, I have to do something a little more targeted. To progress, it has to be more targeted and it has to be incredibly specific. And we can't just be going willy nilly. This ain't Willie Nelson music, right? And I want to talk about the 3-second economy because I'm reading Hook Point right now. I forget the author name. Might have been Brendan Kane. Maybe. I don't know. I just got it on my iBooks. It doesn't matter. I'm reading Hook Point because it was recommended to me, and it's really good. It's really good, and a lot of it makes a lot of logical sense, right? A lot of it makes a lot of logical sense, but it's all in the application of it where there is gold to be found, right? The attention economy is constantly changing, right? It's constantly changing, and that means that we have to change with it, right? And copying is not good. So we cannot copy someone else's design, someone else's way of creating a formula for attention, right? Because that's what it is, right? You create something new, and the book talks about this as well. And I found it funny because, it's like, yeah, that's how I think. And so I feel kind of validated. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm on the right track. This is where I need to be. You need to be on the fringes. If you want to do something worthwhile, you have to be on the fringes of things. You have to experiment. Unfortunately, experimenting is incredibly tedious because content is difficult to make. New ideas are difficult to form. And, you may have a product, but you might not have a hook point, like the book says. And the hook point is the way of generating attention, right? And the book talks about a very good example, like about 100 years ago. I know this is in America. People did not brush their teeth. About 5% of the population at the time, about 100 years ago, brushed their teeth, right? And it's like, ugh, yucky, but, that technology, that hygiene technology just didn't exist back then. So, it's understandable. And it's like, and what's it similar to nowadays? Like, imagine if red light therapy is like the most impressive thing or the most important part of your day 100 years from now, but they'll look back to now and they'll think, well, those guys didn't even use red light therapy. So that's how we have to look at people 100 years ago. that didn't brush their teeth, right? 5% of the American population used to brush their teeth 100 years ago. And the marketing of toothpaste and brushing your teeth 3 times a day is the reason why people have good teeth now. Is because, well, or let's call it healthy teeth, whatever your opinion is on fluoride, whatever, right? People brush their teeth now because of marketers, right? They were able to create a hook point, and people started brushing their teeth, and only 10 years later, 60% of the population was brushing their teeth, right? So from 100, about just over 100 years, I think. 10 years later, that changed to 60. That's pretty profitable. That's big market. That's big market, right? So I guess that's what you have to think about it as. Your product is valuable. You have to have that self-confidence. Your product is valuable. And you'll know whether it is or not. Like deep down in your heart, you'll know, right? This is valuable or not, you'll know. And if it's not, make it more valuable, right? And we want to get attention. Attention is important. Attention is how you get anything done. Um, Unfortunately, now attention is incredibly saturated, right? There's whole data scientists out there, psychologists. They're trying to make sure that your attention is on something that they want you to look at all the time. They're trying to change your mind about certain things. They're trying to, persuade you into a certain form of thinking so that you purchase certain things, so that you live a certain way. Some of those are good things, some of those could be considered bad things, like fast food, right? People really market the hell out of fast food, right? It's like McDonald's ads always have like a family eating burgers, and it's supposed to be like, oh yeah, burgers, McDonald's is like a family meal. But there's a lot of obesity in America, so it's not a good thing because obesity causes a lot of health issues. Um, but regardless, if McDonald's can do it, so can you. And arguably, whatever you have, even if it's less valuable than food with microplastics, um, you're probably better off because you may have less of a value prop than McDonald's. At least you're not making kids obese, right? Don't eat McDonald's. Don't eat McDonald's. Or do, it's your life, Like don't eat McDonald's. Would be cool if you didn't. Like I get it. Like I've had McDonald's. It's pretty good. It's just not good for you. But I digress. Attention is a drug, it's a resource, it's everything. Right? If we want to get anything done, we need attention. We want to get a law changed, we need to get the attention of the lawmakers, politicians. If they want to get elected, they have to do the rounds, they have to raise campaign money. We're not going to get into politics too much, but it's all about attention. And unfortunately, today it's incredibly saturated. And Hook Point is a great book, and it makes a very, obvious point of, and I'm sure it kind of just took it from Facebook's like ad policy. It even mentions it in the book. Like Facebook, like a lot of companies were up in arms. I think that's how they described it he described it in the book as well. A lot of companies were up in arms because Facebook was counting a view on ads even if you just like instantly scrolled. So then they made it a 3 second rule so that it only counted as a watch if you viewed the ad for 3 seconds, right? And so it may seem arbitrary, but Facebook knows more about attention than we do. So, we take it with a grain of salt, but, it's a pretty good starting place. We realize that attention really gets more, what's the word? Like you really have someone's attention with your content if you can make them see, if you can hold them on for 3 seconds. And the idea of the book is that first 3 seconds has to have a hook, right? It has to have a hook that makes a point. Hence the name Hook Point. Genius. So, if we live in a 3 second economy, the hook point is important. It's like, talking to a lady. The first thing you say matters, right? It's like your first impression is like in like the first 7 seconds of meeting someone. Well, that's an old stat. I remember hearing about that like a decade and a half ago when I was still full of hopes and dreams. But now with more hopes and dreams. I'm just going through them. Counting them. And the way you get those hopes and dreams to come true is by being able to catch people's attention. So whoever you are, even if you're not in this world, even if you're not in content creation, you're Joe Schmo, you work at a job, remember, the most important thing you can do in your life is to be able to capture attention properly. And properly is the imperative here. You have to be able to capture attention properly. It can't be willy-nilly. It can't be half-assed. It can't be a lie. You can't lie to get attention. It's bad. It's bad for reputation. We're not liars. We don't lie. Okay? We don't want to lie. We're good people who do good things, and we want good things to happen. So we don't lie. We tell the truth. And we capture attention in creative ways. If you understand? We capture attention in creative ways. That's how we do it. And so now we get to the point of how do we utilize that 3 seconds, And if you're Gen A, it's probably like 1.5, but, we're not selling to Gen A. What's Gen A going to buy? Sun lamps for their room for night, what's popular? Fidget gadgets, plush toys, bouncy balls with fake advertising, a blankie that doubles as a hoodie. But we're not selling that. We're not selling that. In fact, we're not selling. Right? You have to think about it this way. You're not selling. Selling is bad. You're getting people to buy, which may seem like the same thing, but it's not. Because people love to buy, right? People love to buy what they think is useful. People love to buy, but they hate to be sold to. People love to buy, but they hate to be sold to. And that's something important to note, right? So keep that in your mind, right? You're not selling. If someone feels like they're being sold to, their sales guard comes up and they stop listening. They tune out. And at that point, you've already lost because we're not going to go down like manipulation tactics because we're good people and we do good things. But what we do go down is avoid raising that sales guard. And how do you do that? You come up with the right hook point, right? Oh, there was some great examples in the book that I'm like forgetting right now. But if you know what the person that you're talking to, the person who you want to buy your product, if you know their problem and you explain to them briefly that you are aware of their problem, that you know their problem, and in fact that you have a solution, they'll come to you, right? Because nothing is more important than the solution, right? You can't get bogged down in anything else but the product itself. The product is the most important thing. It is the most important thing. Because if you don't have a good product, then you have nothing. If someone needs something, and they are not, how do I phrase this? If someone needs something for a particular reason, and if you can explain to them that your solution solves that thing that they're worried about or that they're having trouble with, they'll come to you. Right? They'll come to you. And you have to do that in 3 seconds. So it has to be quick. It has to be in the first bit of information they get. And the book talks about this guy called, I forget his real name, but this is how good his hook point is that I remember it, right? This guy who calls himself the sleep doctor, right? And it's basically a guy who specialized in sleep science, and he wanted a way to market himself properly because doctors have such weird names for like all different things that they're specialists of, right? Like a foot doctor is a podiatrist. What about the word podiatrist lets you know that is a foot doctor, right? Except for the fact that we're bipedal creatures, and I guess we could call ourselves bipods, and then we get a podiatrist. But who's got time for that? Who's got time to look at the etymology of a word, right? Not your customer, not a person who wants to buy, not someone who just wants a solution to having their feet issues solved, right? And I think there's a new word for podiatrist that's equally as annoying, right? Scientists, I swear, they gatekeep this stuff. Big words, more money. But he's just a sleep doctor, right? And it's so simple, but it's so beautiful, right? Starts off with the, insinuating singularity. The sleep doctor. So we have singularity. We know he's a rare species. There's not many of him out there that specialize in sleep. That's the messaging that you're getting. And I'm sure there's a lot of sleep doctors out there, whatever the technical term is, doctors who specialize in sleep ailments. But he's already singled himself out above the rest just by that name. The sleep, right? And now we know what he does. Now we know what he does, or what it's to do with. And doctor. And everybody knows what a doctor is, right? So it makes you think a little bit like, oh, sleep doctor. But it doesn't make you think too much like, a podiatrist, bipod, right? The sleep doctor. And that made him famous. And because of that really cool name, really unique name that he gave himself, he was invited on to television, the Dr. Oz show or whatever. I don't know. I don't watch American television. And yeah, he became famous, and he made a lot of money. And you can attribute that to the name. He is the sleep doctor. He helps you with your sleep. He's one of a kind. That messaging is in the name, right? That messaging is in the name, and it takes very little to figure out. Oh, he's a doctor of sleep, right? It's like you put those words together, and they mean something. Something important to people who have trouble with sleep, which is a lot of people. And so he's able to distinguish himself. And that's a hook point, right? A hook point is anything that can get attention. It can be text, it can be an image, it can be a concept, it can be anything. As long as it evokes some sort of awe or an emotion or a realization, a change of perspective, something that captures your attention. Your occipitofrontalis muscle is activated. Your lips are puckered. You're engaged. You're like, ooh, sleep doctor. And the book goes more in detail about it, and I recommend reading the book, but it's interesting. He knows what his specialty is. He knows who he's selling to, and so he makes it very easy to understand exactly what he does in a field where everybody's trying to make themselves sound more complicated, to try and seem smarter. But if you're a doctor, we already know you're smart. We need you to simplify it for us, right? The messaging, where it's complicated. And that becomes a hook point. The book goes in about Nike, where the hook point is, them sponsoring incredible athletes over the years. And, you see Jordan wear some cool shoes, and you're like, I want what Jordan's wearing. That's a hook point. It's a really good book. And it made me think. And I had a bit of a breakdown of all my content in front of me, and I'm like, oh, okay. I see what I have to do now. I see what I have to do. All I have to do is get attention. And in a 3-second economy, I have to do that using a hook point. And hook points aren't easy to make. They're not easy to get. They're not easy to acquire. They come with a lot of iteration. right? What I've been talking about in my lives has a lot to do with this because I've been talking about iteration, attacking the market from different angles, and things like that. And the beauty of a hook point is now I get to give it a name. I get to give it a name, and this is the best way to test it. Content is the best way to test it because it's instant. It's like watching a movie, right? There's a lot of really good movies out there that, 95, 97% of the population will like. Why is that? They're just good movies, right? Some you watch because, the acting in it is amazing, and that's the hook point. Maybe you saw in a trailer just how well the dialogue was written. Or maybe it's got some amazing action scenes that you haven't seen before. Right? That's what makes John Wick so interesting, right? The hook point in John Wick is that the action is amazing. And, you can attribute it to the raid or whatever, but John Wick really changed the stunt industry, in Hollywood at least. And now you see a lot of movies really kind of go after that style. If you're an action movie, you're like you see kind of inklings of inspiration from John Wick, The Raid, and all these, kind of movies. Decided to take that risk of doing something in a different way, right? Where Hollywood wasn't doing things like that, right? For whatever reason. Now, whenever there's an action movie, right? At some point in history, I don't know who it was, it's probably a lot of people. At some point, an action star was just a manly man with a real prominent voice. Hey, Pilgrim, you know? Yeah, get 3 coffins ready, you know? And then, the action movie star or the hero, every time you have a movie that, like, hasn't got guns or stuff, it's like, okay, the hook point becomes them doing featurettes or, promotional material where they show the actor training 6 weeks in advance, getting into shape, learning all the different things, right? You can't just get away without all that stuff now because that's what people want. People want that. If they want that realism, and the movies that took the risk of showing that gruesome realism in a very stylized way, they brought that in, and now everybody's doing it. But now that everybody's doing it, it's getting played out. It's getting played out. Like if you watch the fourth John Wick movie, jeez, how many are there? Oh, geez, let me try and remember. Okay, so the first one, he loses his dogs and kills the Russian guy. The second one, he's with Halle Berry, I think. No, the third one, he's with Halle Berry. No, oh crap. Second one is with the guy, one of the people on the table, the high table, I think. Some guy. He wanted to call John back for a job, and then John did the job, and then he killed him in the Continental Hotel. Then in the third one, he's being hunted by the hitman agency or whatever. It's like a whole world, right? He's being hunted by the high table, I guess, or Grant, whatever. The big up people sitting above him in their comfy chairs. And the third one ends with him killing a bunch of people, and the fourth one, the last one, where he Spoiler alert, he dies. And we're good. If you watch the fourth one, it almost feels like it's a really good movie. I enjoyed it. The action's really good. But it's like they really went to town on that style of action. Like I actually was getting incredibly frustrated at the like ladder, like stair scene where he's like against the clock and he has to get up those stairs to get to the duel. But the point of that is when John Wick 1 came out in 2011, I remember it because I watched it in 2012 and nobody knew about that movie. Hipster. Early adopter, I have to say. Because people only started caring about John Wick after the second one came out. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. But it was a cult hit until it wasn't, and the studio greenlit it because the response was good enough. And it was a very well made movie. All of them are very well made. But even that style of action started to get a little played out, right? And that's what you call saturation. Because now everybody's doing that. It's not new anymore. It's not new anymore. So when people see it, they'll still be like, "Oh yeah, it's cool," but it's not, new. We've seen it before. We've seen it before, so we're not as engaged. Not for that selling point, not for the hook point, but now there's a new hook point. It's like you've seen three, you might as well watch four. You're already hooked in. You're already hooked in, and you're in it for the long run now because you like the character, you like the story. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, the hook point is what's John gonna get up to next. But that comes with having a brand, right? In a saturated market, a brand will win. It's harder for new companies, new things, new like it's harder for independent movies to make that kind of splash if they just do what everybody else is doing anyway, right? That's why independent movies are usually always a little bit different because they're experimenting and they need to. They'll always be at the fringes of what's either, popular, what's allowed. They'll always take it to one extreme because if the audience reacts, then you have a new style of movie that Hollywood's going to rinse out for the next decade, right? Or 2 decades, depending on how desperate they are, right? And so a lot of innovation happens at the independent level. Big companies, they like security. They'll win just by being the brand itself, unless they like mess up really bad. They'll win by just having that market trust, right? People are aware of their product, they know it works, and if you're an independent or small business, fresh, single person business that you just made, and you've got a really good product, but does it matter if you cannot hook people in, right? They'll just go to the large companies, even if your product is superior, because they just know them. They know they can trust them. I don't know if you can deliver, right? Because experimenting on the fringes is risky. And it often shows fruit um, after several tests. And so you can't just go up to a production company and say, I wrote this script, I have this movie idea, I want to make it. And it's like, okay, what have you made before? Nothing, but I'm going to be really good at this, trust me. Okay? Can't do that. But if let's say Tarantino goes up to whichever company he's working with, he says, "I got a new script. I'm going to be making a movie." It's like, okay, here's 200 million. Go make it. Make us some money. So being a brand, Tarantino is a brand, so people will come. They know he makes good movies. His style works. People will come watch. They don't know if people will come watch your movie, right? They don't know if your service or product will work. So you have to be at the fringes. You need a hook point. It's important. It's where attention comes from, right? Like for me, Breaking Bad hooked me. I heard it was about a chemistry professor who starts selling meth, right? And that's a great hook point. That's a great hook point. Even though, he loses his job eventually, and so he's not really even a chemistry teacher anymore. And the story kind of goes into a different place, and it ends really well. And it's a really good show throughout, in my opinion. And then Better Call Saul is even better, objectively, not my opinion. And for me, watching that show only was possible because of that hook point. It's like Vince Gilligan wrote a very interesting concept. A chemistry professor who's a really smart guy who doesn't who feels like he's been slighted by the world and feels like his intelligence is going to waste, decides to sell meth. That's very interesting, right? And at the time, it wasn't something that I had heard much of. It was a novel idea for me, and so for me, it was interesting to watch it, and I really enjoyed it. Right? And that's the thing, right? The show is good, right? Vince Gilligan can direct a really good show, and it could have been about anything, but he made his story his hook point. A very interesting concept, and that's sold to people. But if you were to now again try that and redo what Vince Gilligan did, it wouldn't be much of a selling point anymore because it's already been done. People aren't going to, well, I'm not going to react to a show the same way I reacted to Breaking Bad because at the time it was novel. Now it's something that's been done. So you can't do that anymore. But a big company, a production house, a very big one, Warner Bros. Or someone like that, might decide 10 years after Breaking Bad, they're like, maybe let's do that, but let's change a couple of details, right? So that it's a new idea, but it it follows the kind of core concept of common man with ego and kind of issues with feeling underappreciated, does something very out of character due to. Oh, dude, I totally forgot about the lung cancer angle. Right? Totally forgot about the lung cancer. Very interesting point. He is like he's dying, so screw it. Let's make some meth. And that's cool, but it's not cool anymore because it's already done. Right? I remember when I was in school, everybody in school suddenly started wearing these bracelets called Shambhalas. And I thought they were hideous. But the fact that everybody was wearing them and they were cool for like 3 months made me want to get one. Even like my shoes, everybody like wearing shoes was like an important thing. Like, oh, what kind of shoes is that person wearing? And you get made fun of if your shoes weren't cool. But if you were wearing this particular brand called Kickers, you're good. right? So I was just begging my mom to get me kickers, and there were some nice shoes. There were some nice shoes. I wonder if that company's still around. I remember kickers, right? So that became a hook point for me. It's like if you had kickers, you were cool, like, or at least un you couldn't be made fun of. It was like, it's like, oh yeah, he's got kickers. So you could stand with the people with the kickers and the other nice shoes and be like, haha, look at your shoes. I didn't do that, but now that that opportunity was available to me, at least there was less anxiety about what shoes I was wearing. So in that scenario, me as the customer, I'm not being sold to, right? Someone didn't come up to me and say, you know, hey, you won't get made fun of if you wear these shoes in school. But like, if someone said that, I'd think like, oh yeah, okay. Like, thanks, guy, leave me alone. Or thanks, lady, appreciate it. I gotta go. But the hook point was created for me through my that was created by the company. But it, because I bought into it, I wasn't sold it, right? And that's how a hook point works. That's how attention works. Don't sell to people. Present them with an argument that resonates within them and provide them with an appropriate solution, right? Provide them with the appropriate solution that comes with whatever problem you're agitating, right? It's the problem, it's the pain that you're agitating with your hook point. It's like, let's see. Oh, there was this one about like boots, and I'm forgetting it, but it was something like, eyes are freezing. You've got a frostbite on your skin. Um, you're close to death. Let's talk about boots. Like, that was the headline, right? And that lets you know all you need to know about the shoes, right? If you're an adventurer, if you're someone who lives in a cold, icy place, if you're going to go somewhere icy where, temperatures are where you could experience those issues, then you want those shoes, right? Because you're selling it with that in mind. The way you're getting their attention is by in a few words, and not saying, these shoes will stop you from giving frostbite. You should get these. It's like, this shoe will solve these problems for you. And here's how it does it. And it talks about all the technology inside the shoe, right? This shoe will do that for you. And so when you think about, I'm going to somewhere icy, a holiday destination or whatever, I need some boots. I know a really good boot that does that. You buy into it. You're not being sold it. That's very important. You don't want to sell, you want people to buy in. Important distinction. And you have to do that in the first 3 seconds, right? So it's not easy. It's incredibly difficult, and it requires a lot of iteration, a lot of thought, a lot of research. And the book outlines it wonderfully. So, read the book. And there was another, I don't know if this was in the book, but there was another one. It was